even when all of the pieces that you have control over are in place, you've got a routine, you're in that plateau of not needing to work too hard on it in this moment, it doesn't mean that sleep will be easy. Sleep is a long, slow developmental process, and when we try to rush it, we end up frustrating both ourselves and our babies. Welcome to the Baby Sleep Connection, a podcast that explores baby sleep and more through the lens of attachment and development. I'm your host, Heather Boyd. I'm a mom of 3, an occupational therapist, and a certified infant and family sleep specialist. If you are a tired parent who wants to support your baby's sleep holistically, keep listening as we delve into approaches that go well beyond the usual strategies of wake windows and bedtime routines. Your baby's sleep is connected with so much more. Before we jump into today's episode, I wanted to share with you a new theme happening at the Baby Sleep Connection podcast. About once a month, we are running an Ask and Answer episode. What this means is I get a chance to answer your questions about baby sleep or sleep challenges that you're having. If you want to submit a question, go to familysleep.ca/podcast and look for the Ask and Answer button. I look forward to answering your question soon. Hello, and welcome back to the Baby Sleep Connection podcast. I'm your host, Heather Boyd, occupational therapist and mom of 3 and sleep coach. And we are talking about schedules. I almost want to call it the S word, schedules, because I know many of you out there are, at least initially, looking at schedules as being the quintessential way of fixing sleep challenges in your house. I've worked with a lot of parents who've come to me doing everything quote unquote right around nap schedules, wake windows, bedtime routine, and it still feels like sleep isn't working. Part of the challenge is that they are super fixed on the schedule or routine, looking at the main solutions being earlier bedtime or earlier naps or dropping a nap. I want to ask you a question. What if the problem with the sleep that you're experiencing with your baby isn't your baby's sleep schedule? What if the schedule is not the pin that is holding everything together? And I know that that can be a challenge to reframe because so much focus on social media and in sleep books is on the schedule. I know moms who have printed off schedules and put them on their fridge to try to adhere to this external structure of a schedule to get better sleep. It has led to high frustration, high anxiety, a lot of confusion, and not better sleep in a lot of cases. Now, that's not to say that a well-fitted routine is not helpful. But when we start looking at the schedule as being the secret sauce to your baby's sleep, we're missing a lot of other pieces that can make sleep better. So I want to get you thinking about moving over this priority of scheduling being the main problem. And what if there is something else that is needing your attention around sleep that's going to make it easier? So I want to start with, I have 4 points I want to cover today, and I'm going to try to cover them succinctly. I'm going to try to do shorter episodes for you because I know time is tight. Your schedule is tight. So we're going to cover 4 points today. And the first one is your baby's sleep schedule, or I'm going to even say daily schedule. The whole day matters. It's not just sleep, of course. The schedule is a tool. It's not a solution. So it is a tool that you can use to help guide easier sleep, but it is only one of the tools in your toolbox. Now, I've talked a lot in the past about the difference between schedule, routine, and rhythm. And I'm using the word schedule here because we do often think in terms of schedules. You do have things on your calendar that are actually scheduled in. I, of course, prefer to look at sleep and the flow of your day, family life and the flow of the day for your baby as being much more about a good routine rather than a schedule. Schedules are great for trains. Schedules are great for fixed appointments, like making sure you get to the dentist on time. But routines are a little bit more fluid, and rhythms are even more fluid. And we'll get into that a little bit. But a good routine, if you like using the word schedule, use schedule, it can help, but it is not the full picture. A routine, the way that I approach it is it's a firm base. It is a way of bookending your day or having benchmarks in the day that help things fall into place in a reasonable way without being too rigid. But of course, a routine or rhythm for the day is also not entirely up to you because, of course, no matter how well laid out the day is, if your baby is not tired at nap time or they are tired much earlier than you expect for bedtime, that idea of the schedule needs to be torn up because this is trying to fit your baby's flow to the day and their natural inclination towards sleep or towards high levels of activity or playfulness or creativity. That doesn't work on a clock. We also know that sleep is going to be interrupted by other things, so that even if you reach these plateaus of these points of resting in a routine that is working for you, there are going to be these interruptions that are out of your control, whether it's teething, whether it's a shift in family dynamic or a return to work that throws everything in flux or a developmental leap. And so although, and I do want to talk about these plateaus, these moments where you can rest in not having to work so hard to get a flow or rhythm or routine to your day. As a very young parent, I had a friend tell me about these plateaus, these periods of rest where everything feels like it comes together and the day feels like it makes sense. Like you have these fairly consistent nap timings, fairly consistent intervals of wakefulness, fairly consistent wake up time and bedtime, even if you're not working super hard to get it. It's almost like you've arrived at the station. You're there and you can rest. You're not having to do as much work. But then there are these periods of flux where you can't even get a handle on what is supposed to happen with your baby's day and baby's sleep timing. It can feel like you're missing something, doing something wrong, or have completely derailed things inadvertently when you get to these moments where there is no plateau, there is no sensible schedule or routine that you can cling onto, get your hands onto. And for myself especially, I'm the kind of person that loves rhythm. I love predictability. I think for most of the parents I talk to, that rhythm and predictability helps get you through the day without feeling like you are totally spinning. You can enjoy those moments where it comes in naturally and you can let go of the idea that you have done something wrong if there isn't something to hold on to schedule-wise. I do like to go back to the basics when that happens, though, and look at figuring out the bookends of the day. Is there a reasonable interval of time for waking up and starting the day? And is there a reasonable window of time for winding down the day so that at least, even if all the naps are chaos, you have these bookends to the day that allow you to hang on to something that's a little bit more structured and predictable. For most of the families I work with, having some sense of predictability can be a game changer because it is anxiety provoking on the other end to not have any sense of what's going on. So use the schedule or routine of your day as a tool, not as a cure, not as the be all and end all. Know that as well, that routine is not just coming from you. You are like the guide or the platform and the foundation for this, but your baby is still driving the rhythm, driving their own development of circadian rhythm, wakefulness, how fast sleep pressure rises up to allow the next sleep period to happen. So use it as a tool. If you find that you are clinging really tightly to it, picture ripping it up into pieces and thinking of it more as this 24-hour period where there are ebbs and flows. There are forces that are both inside what you can have control over and what your baby is doing. I often think of the rotation of the earth in a 24-hour period where the sun is rising and the sun is setting. It changes over the year. We do not have sunrise and sunset happening at the same time all year. It changes quite dramatically. I'm already noticing the sun is getting up much later right now as we are halfway through August than it was in June. And so use the idea of gradual change to realize that this schedule is not rigid and that the harder you try to make a schedule, much like trying to control the sun, the more futile it's going to feel. And that letting go into a flexible flow to the day that has bookends, and that within that has these little markers during the day of expectation or anticipation of nap, and then letting the rigidness of trying to have a schedule, letting that go. It will be easier at certain times in parenting than others, and it will depend largely on what else is happening in your baby's development, in your baby's life. And so, you moving that word over from schedule to routine can be a real game changer. I will add that depending on your personality, you're going to cling harder or more loosely to this idea of a schedule. So honor your own tendencies around schedules and routines to understand why you're butting up against resistance when it comes to trying to fit a schedule into your baby's life or your life. The second point I want to make is these hidden stressors that can contribute to challenges with having a predictable routine. You've got, at various stages of development, separation anxiety. You've got these developmental leaps that can impact sleep or quote unquote sleep regressions. You have periods of time where there could be overstimulation or a lot of stress. Summer, even with lovely and awesome activities, there can be overstimulation, and that can throw things off, not just for your baby, but let's be frank, we can be overstimulated too, sometimes even more than our babies, especially for the families that I work with where baby's temperament is really laid back and chill. But the moms that I'm working with are very type A, or very wanting to be in control and make things work a certain way, or highly sensitive parents with babies that are chill and love to have lots of stimulation. It can be a little bit of a challenging mismatch there. Family tension, if there's anything changing in preparation for return to work or a change of family dynamic, it's going to have an impact on the routine or flow that you have in your day. I haven't even brought up other stressors like a new daycare room if your baby is moving up or starting school, illness, teething, a new sibling. All of these things can affect how a routine or rhythm or schedule unfolds in your day. When it comes to these added stressors, we know that connection and attachment is how we get through. So if nervous systems are feeling a little bit raw and wiry, go back to connection. Connection can be through movement, can be through voice and song. It can be through eye contact, those soft eyes. I always think about a twinkle and a wrinkle, the twinkle in your eye and a wrinkle in the corners of your eyes. Are you letting yourself get into that state of regulation and connection for co-regulation with your baby? I have had so many parents be very surprised when they've been trying to get the schedule right, and I've really trimmed it back, pulled back all the layers and said, what if you just focus on connection for the next few days? Like, just connect. And it doesn't mean intense in your face. It just means slowing down, being fully present, getting down on your baby's level, slowing down, adding some of that playfulness back in that might get stripped out when you are trying to do all the things and trying to get a handle on things. The parents that have really taken me up on this have been astounded in most cases of the impact, the positive impact that that connection can have on sleep. So there may be those hidden stressors. We don't have control over all of them. If in doubt, go back to connection. That connection allows co-regulation. It allows support for your own nervous system for being able to handle having some more resilience around the unpredictability of routines. The third point I want to make today is, and I guess I've overlapped a little bit, I delved into this one, regulation before routine. Make regulation be a higher priority. To focus on co-regulation, we're talking about that calm connection. We're talking about that responsiveness. When the focus is on timing that nap right, it can lead to disconnection because your priority and your focus and your attention is all on the clock and on the wake window, and we become disconnected, and that can lead to some dysregulation and certainly lead to some futility for you if your idea of a well-timed nap is not lining up with your baby's natural rhythm for sleep. The last point I want to make today, and it's something that comes from my occupational therapy brain, is this idea of movement and sensory work and heavy work. That I talked a little bit about that when we were talking about how to co-regulate, but that movement, that proprioception and heavy work, the rocking, the hugs, the deep pressure, the heavy work of pushing, pulling, climbing, reaching, all of those things feed the nervous system for regulation. Vestibular experience as well, that rocking and movement and swinging. It is not a coincidence that many babies fall asleep in the car where they are cozied and buckled right in. The car has a vibration rolling along the road. It also has often the warmth in the car that just helps regulate. And there aren't a lot of other demands to overstimulate babies that may be otherwise tired. There's no coincidence there that babies often also fall asleep in the swing. All of these sensory experiences, from movement to deep pressure and heavy work to vestibular movement, these are all important foundations for a regulated nervous system. And a regulated nervous system, of course, is the basis for being able to let go into unconsciousness or let go into sleep. Because really, there are two ways to get into sleep. One is to be regulated enough that your system can allow and welcome sleep and let go, like really letting go into sleep. The other way is to slam into sleep, to shut down. And that's the opposite of regulation. That's overstimulated. The system is in fight or flight, and the only way to get out of it is to conk out or disengage. And of course, the first option is much better, to be able to fall into sleep because you have a regulated nervous system. So how do we pull these four things in together? That first, the schedule is a tool, not a solution. Address hidden stressors that are dysregulating you or your baby. Regulation trumps routine. And use movement, proprioception, and other sensory approaches to really help with that regulation. So if your baby, to summarize all this, isn't sleeping by the book, that schedule that you pulled from a book or from social media or that you asked AI to generate, if it's not working, it doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. It means that your baby's routine or rhythm is not lining up with a rigid schedule that you have in your hand. And I know how tempting it is to just say, can't we just make this work? Like everything will be better if they just would follow the schedule. Now, as babies get older, they do get more adaptable and things can be shored into a schedule that combines their sleep needs with the rhythm of your day, the things that you need to do, like getting out of the house for daycare drop-off or participating in the early on center group that you'd like to attend or a library group. But that doesn't mean that the schedule is always going to fit. And if we push the schedule, the rigidness out and look at how are we going to line up with your baby's natural rhythm to the day, how is it that nature is supporting you, that sunrise and sunset, and can you use that to support the bookends to your day? Then you're looking at how to use the natural flow of your baby's nervous system that goes up and down through being really active, energetic, lively, engaged, and then needing those periods of rest. Of course, I've talked about rest in other podcasts as well. There can be rest without sleep. That restful state can be rejuvenating and relaxing and can reset some of that sleep pressure. For you as an adult, if you use hypnosis or meditation, you can get into a very deep rested state that can be just as helpful as actual sleep. The brain waves are at a frequency that allows your body to rejuvenate and rest in ways that are quite profound. So if you have not used or explored meditation or hypnosis as a tool, know that is also a very good tool. And I will say again, it's a tool, not a solution. It's one part of the bigger picture. So I invite you this week, if you are struggling with your baby's schedule, to tune into their cues, tune into the flow of the day, pay attention to when your energy peaks and troughs as well, so that you can not be trying to do the hardest work around your baby's sleep at the times when you are low energy, so that you can find and ease your way through, and to look well beyond the clock. Even with this 24-hour clock idea, I'm encouraging parents to look at sleep over a 3-day period so that those fluctuations day to day kind of get softened. You're not looking at it being a 1-to-1 ratio of if my baby naps this way today, they will sleep that way tonight. It's often much more of a slow trickle down. And to know that even when all of the pieces that you have control over are in place, you've got a routine, you're in that plateau of not needing to work too hard on it in this moment, it doesn't mean that sleep will be easy. Sleep is a long, slow developmental process. And when we try to rush it, we end up frustrating both ourselves and our babies. So keep those in mind. I encourage you to pay attention to the natural flow that is coming through in terms of the full day, to look at patterns over time, not just today, not just whether one nap leads to, whether A leads to B, but A leads to H and beyond. So taking that bigger view. I would love to hear from you how these strategies and looking at routine and rhythm has supported you this week. Give them a try and then drop me a line. I would love to hear. And I will send best wishes to have some rhythm to the day that allows you to relax and enjoy and stay connected with your baby and stay connected with your own needs too. Until next time, bye for now. Thank you for joining me on this episode. I do hope that you found the information and perspectives in this podcast episode helpful to you as you navigate your baby's sleep development. Of course, this podcast provides general information and it isn't tailored to your family's reality or the specific needs of your baby. If you're concerned about your baby's sleep or health, be sure to reach out to your healthcare provider. If you're feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and you need a place to feel nurtured and reassured, you can find me on Instagram at familysleep.ca. Until next episode, look for the connections that support you and your baby.